What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. It feels like no matter what quarterback we bring in, a high draft pick immediately tabbed as the quarterback of the future, a veteran with the resume that says they can come in and get the job done, bridge quarterback, high upside player that just hasn't been in the right situation. There's a perpetual cycle of events I feel like that we run into consistently. Let's call it every 5 to 7 years, right? You get the inevitable butt fumble type highlight of whatever negative play fits that quarterback, and just the magnitude of it being absolutely ridiculous. You get the post-game press conference or the eventual benching situation where the response is just one that's so far out, so far removed from reality, it's hard to even imagine that this person actually said the words. And then 3, you end up getting, of course, the back and forth of this player is starting, this player is benched, okay, he's starting again, has a good game, maybe there's some upside, right? And generally we tend to be locked into this same player for the following year, and there's more drama to come and pursue with that. But Justin Fields and his reaction absolutely floored me, right? Because I think he's been a player that has, generally speaking, been pretty accountable, has said the right things. Obviously, none of that has mattered with the on-field product outside of 2 games, but he's done the right things. He said the right things. He hasn't really been a nuisance whatsoever in terms of how he could be impacting the locker room. And regardless of how I feel about his leadership or anything, overall, satisfactory handling of the media, not being baited into terrible answers, etc. But this is the first time where I'm looking at him sideways, not just as a fan, but I'm placing myself in that locker room. If I'm one of the other 53 men on the roster or 52 men on the roster that are looking to him as one of the more pivotal reasons for why we're going to have success or failure. Let's get into some of these comments. So this is coming on the heels of, just to put it in context, Brian Costello had already tried to chase down Justin Fields at one point to get his response to being benched. And we had the whole saga about Breece Hall coming to Justin Fields' defense and saying, it was kind of Bush League tactics by Brian Costello chasing somebody just to get a sound bite. Now we get an official response, right? And I've seen this come out via ESPN, and I'm assuming Rich Cimini reported on it if I remember correctly. But first couple of quotes about the benching. He said, "I did not anticipate it whatsoever. You can call it what you want, but AG thought it was justified, and he makes the decisions around here." Now, this is the first piece that really gets on my nerves, because this one, it kind of strips away all the accountability that he's had up until this point in my mind. And I know I'm taking this a little severely, but that's just my thought process and thinking about the whole situation, right? 2, objectively speaking, you have been a terrible quarterback this year, right? Now, if Justin Fields wants to come out and at some point this season or in the offseason or when he gets removed from the team say, hey, they did believe in me, but I don't feel like I had the necessary support around me to get the job done, right? That'd be a whole nother discussion. There's definitely validity to that argument. But to be the leader, one, you could demand these things, and I understand it's not like he's a franchise caliber guy or anything, but as the starter, you need to voice the opinion that, hey, I don't think I can get it done with this group of guys, and then let that decision be up to the head coach and the GM or whether they can bring these guys in or whatever, how that's going to play out, right? But the fact that, one, you are kind of removing yourself from the play that you put out there, right? It doesn't matter if you look at film. It doesn't matter if you want to go by the statistics. It doesn't matter if we were to put out a survey to the players and, executives, etc. around the league and within the Jets organization. Everybody is going to say that they've been unhappy for the most part with your play, Justin Fields, right? Whether that's the fact that you've had numerous games under even 100 yards passing this season, whether it's the fact that you've had a handful of games, if I remember correctly, where you've either had just as many completions as sacks, or what was the other number that I was thinking of? No, yeah, I think that was actually it, right? I think there's multiple games where you either had just as many sacks as you had pass completions, or more sacks than even, I guess, than touchdowns isn't necessarily fair, but you could take a look at passing game charts, right? And for people that say, well, he hasn't been given the chance to throw it downfield and all these different things, the routes have been there. We've said it consistently all season. You can see when these guys are clearly open on film and he's just not throwing the ball. He is quite literally sticking to like 5 to 7 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, and then everything at or behind it, right? He plays the most stringent game of football that I've ever seen from a quarterback that especially has the traits and talents that he has. But it annoys me so much because you don't have to necessarily be anticipating getting benched, but you can look at your performance and say, hey, this isn't starting caliber level. 2, I have a veteran behind me that at any point in time people already have felt like is better than me and at least has the experience and kind of, have gone through more of these type of situations potentially than what I have. So it is, a short leash. It's crazy. I don't think this is at the level of Zach Wilson saying that he doesn't believe the onus is on him after some of the defensive performances that we were seeing out of the unit when we were at our peak with Robert Saleh. But it's definitely up there for me. You can't be this oblivious in the league, right? And I get at this point, you've probably been hounded, name dragged through the mud and all that kind of stuff. But this is the name of the game. Again, Saleh pointed out plenty of times, you're playing a child's game at a king's ransom, making millions upon millions of dollars to do one job, and you're not good at it as of right now, right? Maybe he becomes a success story, much like some of these other quarterbacks, Geno, Sam Darnold, etc., that we've let go, but seems more likely he probably follows the Zach Wilson train here, right? Now, he also had a specific reaction to the first couple of days or so of going through being benched. He says, the first day it happens, it's tough. It probably took me a day and a half to fully accept my role. Then last Friday, I felt myself in kind of a damn moment to where it was like, yeah, it's actually real. Now, I'm a guy that I guess if I'm looking at this isn't the best light to paint yourself in. Right now, as football players, just the general kind of mindset and concept and point of view of someone looking at a football player is tough, is rugged. It's, no place for emotions in terms of like the sensitivity of things. Obviously, there's heightened emotions, so you get that anger, you get that fear, you get that ferocity, you get all that kind of, caveman type stuff going on. But he brought a level of sensitivity into this when he mentioned, the first time he was benched, I think it was, right? Crying in his closet in his house, right, while he's venting to his friend. Now you get these moments here where it's like he can't really get a grip or a grasp of reality, and this isn't his first time being benched, right? You have what happened to him with the Steelers. You definitely have a lot of the conversations that were coming up when he was the face of the Bears after they drafted him so highly. So at this point, I don't want to say that you should be accustomed to getting benched, because at that point, that's a completely different discussion of where you're probably at in your career. But some of these reactions just seem too dramatic, in my opinion, to just put it bluntly, right? And so if I'm looking at this, and again, if I'm someone in that locker room with him, I'm saying, hey, this guy puts on the face mask of being calm and being about business and not being too high or too low. But in fact, he may not be mentally capable of handling the rigors of the NFL, right? Everybody has bad games, but you've had consistent bad games and you haven't been able to really bounce back from them, right? So, I don't know. We'll see ultimately what happens. I don't think there's going to really be any players the way that Aaron Glenn's tried to really insulate this locker room and really the organization as a whole. I don't think we'll necessarily see any leaks get put out there in terms of players not having a ton of trust in Justin Fields, other than what we already kind of know in that Many players around the team most likely prefer Tyrod Taylor over Justin Fields, but I would at least say it was based on the fact that Justin Fields had a long enough rope and things didn't look good while he was out there. Now, one of the other things is you kind of get, when you go through his comments, you kind of get like the 5 stages of grief almost, if you will, as I go through it. You get the acceptance part of it where he says you kind of just have to look at life from a positive perspective. I'm blessed to be in this position. I know I'm going to get another shot. That's all that matters at the end of the day. So when I do, I just have to be prepared for that moment, be the best player I've ever been on the field. Kind of what I would expect it to say, right? I think if he would have came out and that would have just been essentially the quote or the excerpt or the blurb that we got, you would have chalked it up to football speak, quarterback speak, a player that wants to bounce back. Again, I think if you're just looking at this as a whole, 32 teams around the league, will I say all of them are going to be interested? No. But they're going to look at that Steelers game, and they're going to look at the game, I don't know, what was the other one that he balled out on? It's not coming to mind. But they're going to look at the 2 games where he did really, really well and say, this is a pathway for us to try to get more out of him within this vein of how he plays the game, right? There's going to be the teams that say he wasn't utilized properly, right? Where was the running ability? Where was getting him outside of the pocket on the move? And to be honest, yes, there's questions about that, but I think when you see how he hasn't been getting some of the calls, when he's been sliding, he's been getting cracked to death on the field, in addition to just the fact that again, there's been a lot of hesitancy in how he's throwing, but also some of the injuries and the concussion and stuff creeping up. So no need to unnecessarily risk it for a guy that can't necessarily handle it in the same way that a Cam Newton or a Josh Allen or someone that's built in that vein would potentially be able to. So I'm not really going to knock the Jets in that regard. And then some of his final comments here, right? And this is just in relation to what does the future look like for Justin Fields and kind of how things will pan out and how we play, right? He says, of course, yes, sir. I mean, I just know who I am as a person, as a football player, as a hard worker. I think I know I have the mindset and skill to attain that. I just feel like I need to do it on a more consistent basis. Like I need to, but that's just what it is, right? So nobody's going to question it. Consistency has been out of the window for Justin Fields, other than if you want to continue to put the knife in his back, consistent bad performances, right? Now, he does go on to say it's the ups and downs of life, and I'm in a quote-unquote valley right now, but it's not going to do anything but make me stronger on the back end of it. I would have severely questioned whether this put him in conversations about potential early retirement with just how bad things have gone for him during his career, but it still seems like he has, I guess, some passion for the game, if you want to call it that, and continuing. This does get into a whole nother vein of conversations with Justin Fields being on the books next year, $10 million guaranteed, $20 million overall going into year 2. Will the Jets try to trade him? We've had teams like the Eagles, the Ravens come up as potential fits. Would the Jets potentially cut him outright? And then is it going to just be them eating the dead space now so they don't have to worry about it in future years, doing a potentially doing a post June 1st cut and saving some more cap space this year, but getting it spread over this year and 2027? Who knows, right? But he does finish this off by saying, I'm not going to have that mindset in terms of, oh, they benched me, I'm not going to play here. I think that's a bad mindset to have. Excuse me. And I think that at least answers some things about, could he potentially become a bit of a locker room cancer or more of a distraction, even if he's not having negative quotes or anything like that drawn to his attention, right? Now, he gets put in a weird situation because we know AG is kind of prickly about having this like celebrity player type status within the locker room. And I don't think that really fits Justin Fields based on what we've seen, but you could argue that because of the turmoil around keeping Justin Fields potentially and knowing that he potentially be like a bridge quarterback or a backup or something sitting behind a rookie, I don't think you'd have the issues with people calling and screaming to have Justin Fields back on the field. But it could be an issue where you have Justin Fields saying, hey, I can see this rookie struggling. I feel like I would do better than what he's doing in these areas or something if comments were to creep up potentially. But who knows how that'll play out. But overall, I would say pretty disappointing in terms of the totality of his comments. And again, just kind of the broad strokes that he's painted his season with the New York Jets, and just really missing a lot of the context around, was he fully the issue with the New York Jets? No. But you can't have multiple games where you're struggling to get to 10 completions by the fourth quarter. Multiple games where you're struggling to even get to 50 yards by the fourth quarter. Yes, touchdown to interception ratio looks great, but you can't have multiple games where you're not even pushing and challenging the defense on the other side of the ball, right? It's one thing to look a certain way in practice, and then you can't transition that to the field, which is the whole cycle of what Aaron Glenn is realistically trying to break based on what we've seen from other teams, and even during AG's first season, what he's dealing with, where these practices are great and elite and legendary to whatever degrees, and then we get on the field and we don't see, any kind of concept or pre-collection of that happening for the Jets. But let me know what you guys think. Justin Fields comments right now, and what does his future with the Jets look like if he has any. I'll catch you guys again. Peace.